video. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, yes.
I think the connection is...
Oh, do you want me to go on?
Evelyn, I'd like you to go on, and we'll ask Dr. Akpala to just to present at the end. Evelyn?
Okay. Can you see me?
No.
I'm not computer savvy on this, but you could hear me clearly.
We can hear you well. Please continue.
Let me just go on because of time. Okay.
Please.
This presentation is moved by looking at issues of law in practice on asset forfeiture, and the work in progress really to look at exploring issues from a socio-legal perspective, considering the issues of IFX in illicit financial flows and the issue of sustainable development in African countries. So I'm moved to look at the non-conviction-based forfeiture mechanism as a practical asset recovery mechanism for African countries. Next slide, please. Now, forfeiture is basically talked about the vesting of criminal assets or unlawful assets from the hands of criminals or offenders. So this will include cash, include personal property, and real estate. So crime here refers to all criminal offenses, unlawful activities prescribed by law. Now, we're looking at financial crime here. So that would be fraud, narcotic drug trafficking, money laundering, embezzlement, bribery, and looting. So there are basically three types of forfeiture actions that we could take, and that would be criminal forfeiture, which is a personal action that is taken against an offender with intention of recovering illicit assets upon the conviction of the offender. It requires the presence of the offender. It requires a standard of proof which is beyond reasonable doubt. Now, this mechanism is quite costly, and there are delay issues, especially in African countries, in any country actually, but there are issues in tracing, freezing, and forfeiting these assets, especially after going through a long process of trying to convict them. The approach here is a punitive approach, which is basically to fine them, imprison them, and forfeit their assets upon their conviction. So another of the criminal code then executes the penalties under the criminal code or the procedural rules of the individual countries. Next slide, please. Civil forfeiture is basically the appropriation by the state of unlawful assets from illegal activity. So it's directed at the property itself. This is a less stringent action. It's on balance of probabilities. It targets the property itself, not the offender. So it's more of a restorative or compensatory approach, which goes to provide remedies of restoration to the victims harmed by crime, to compensate them, basically. So there are different types of evil actions that one could take, which would be, there's some where you look at the private civil actions where, private litigants can bring civil proceedings in jurisdictions where the offender resides or where the illicit assets are located. There's also the administrative forfeiture action, which we could take, which is a non-judicial process that aims to seize assets. This is based on the probable cause that they're subject to forfeiture. Next slide, please. Now, there is a global consensus on recovering the process of crime. With lots of speakers here today have talked about illicit financial flows. My concern here is illicit financial flows from Africa. There's a major agenda with the international community, the regional bodies, in trying to ensure the confiscation of assets that are stored in, that have been transited abroad, trying to recover them back. Africa has faced drainage of capital and has a huge consequences on the development of the region itself. So we have had initiatives from the United Nations, from the UNCAC, Against Corruption, the Financial Action Task Force. We've got the Stolen Asset Recovery Initiative, which promotes the effective recovery of assets using helping developing countries with their asset recovery efforts, really. So we have the regional effort with the African Union, with the African Union Convention on Preventing Corruption. But these basically, why I make reference to these initiatives is to look specifically at the provisions on asset forfeiture. And I'm looking at Article 54.1c of the UNCAC and the Article 16 of the AUC, which refers to a non-conventional based forfeiture mechanism as an additional or an alternative mechanism to recovering the process of crime. Next slide, please. Thank you very much. Now, the NCBF mechanism has its benefits. Its purpose is to divest illicit profits, to take them out of the hands of offenders. So it reduces the incentives to engage in unlawful activities, in the sense that it serves as a deterrence to corrupt acts or criminal acts. So efforts at recovering using the mechanism kind of increase, more assets are recovered or forfeited or repatriated to countries. Recovered assets could be used to benefit victims, which can help in the sustainable development goals of African countries in poverty reduction programs. Now, there are countries that have actually have well-developed asset forfeiture mechanisms, like the US and the United Kingdom. But in Africa, we do have some countries that have well-developed criminal and civil forfeiture mechanism, but this is not without its issues. South Africa, for instance, Kenya has both criminal and civil forfeiture measures. Now, the focus of this presentation today is to look at the implementation and enforcement challenges in utilizing this mechanism in Africa. I'm looking at it from the stakeholders' perspective, because I find out that there is a serious scarcity of literature in this area, particularly within the context of cultural issues. Looking at it from why can't we effectively recover assets? So looking at the weak institutions, governance systems, and mechanisms which contribute greatly to asset recovery in practice. So I would, due to time, I will look at just law enforcement perspective on recovering assets. Next slide, please. Thank you very much. The essence of looking at South Africa, Kenya, and Zambia is to kind of compare, because my focus was Nigeria is yet to implement this mechanism. Now, South Africa has a mechanism in place. To start with, these countries have asset forfeiture framework. So one of the laws is, for South Africa, for instance, is the Prevention of Organized Crime Act of 1998, the Kenya, the Process of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Act of 2009, and Zambia, the Forfeiture of the Process of Crime 2010. Now, all these acts provide for the criminal and civil forfeiture of assets. Next slide, please. With Nigeria, we do not currently have a civil forfeiture mechanism, but there are mechanisms that we to recover assets. We go through the criminal law process, which is quite tedious, and we have issues with that. Nigeria has been trying to implement a civil forfeiture mechanism under the Process of Crime law, which was proposed since 2009, and this being ongoing now for over 10 years now. Current president has proposed the Proceeds of Crime Bill, which is the 2019 bill. But interestingly, the 2017 almost got, was before him for assent, but I don't know why he didn't approve it, though there were issues of, I've forgotten, I'll come back to that. But there were issues with bringing it into, enacting it into law. So we have the 2019, which is before the Legislative House. Now, with comparing this Proceeds of Crime Bill and the enactment in South Africa, Kenya, and Zambia, I want to look at the NCBF mechanism. The objective of this mechanism is basically the same, and that is to deprive offenders of the financial benefit or profit of their crimes. Now, this bill proposed to provide the restraint, seizure, confiscation, forfeiture of profit derived from unlawful activities and all instrumentalities used or intended to be used in the commission of crime. Next slide, please.
Evelyn, I apologize because this is an issue of particular interest to me, having been an expert witness in a civil forfeiture proceeding in the US, but I have to give you 2 more minutes and then we'll.
All right, then.
I know you have a lot more interesting things to cover. Thank you.
Okay, I looked at the implementation and enforcement challenges. I looked at, okay, I'll focus on the crypto assets. I noticed that there's no provision on crypto assets. And this is quite a serious lack in the law. In short, in all the laws actually, because crypto assets is basically about, is a property for forfeiture. But governments have not actually regulated, there's limited government control. If we know how crypto assets are, they are anonymous in nature. So there's need to look at this area and make provisions on that, the legislation. Now, there's a case I want to refer to quickly, and that's the Eon Science Case, which just came up. It's unreported, and it doesn't have much authority, but it shows that the courts are quite flexible at looking at crypto assets and trying to locate in terms of worldwide freezing orders and placing an injunction on trying to recover assets, crypto assets. So I think there is need for governments in African countries to look at making provisions on crypto assets in legislations on proceeds of crime. Now, enforcement is another problem with enforcement challenges. It's the enforcement authorities, it's the lack of the capacity and the resources in carrying out their functions. Capacity in the sense that skills and development, resources, inadequate resources to fund the activities, in the management of recovered assets or forfeited assets in this case. Especially when we understand that the purpose of forfeiture of assets is to use these assets to probably benefit victims and take them out of the hands of offenders. Next slide, please. I also looked at the proportionality and constitutionality of the NCBF mechanism, the civil forfeiture mechanism. There's need to balance the need to recover assets and the need to take it from the hands of offenders. Now, look at the property rights, because under the Constitution, everyone has the right to property, the right to not be, but there's a way the act has been defined under section 94 of the Kenya's Act, 30 of the Zambian Act, and the South African Act, which provides for the exclusion of interest in property. That is, there's a defense to those that have a genuine bona fide defense to those with interest in properties. I looked at also the presumption of innocence. Now, I know this is about civil forfeiture, but in issues of evidence, in trying to defend your right to properties, you need to present evidence. So there's need for law enforcement to balance the right to provide evidence and the right to protect your property. Next slide, please. So in all, I just want to talk about
I'm so sorry to interrupt.
Hello?
Sorry to interrupt, but can I ask you to round up in the next 1 minute, please?
Yes, I'm doing that now. This is the last slide. We need law reform in this area, especially in Nigeria, in trying to implement a new civil forfeiture mechanism. So we need comprehensive and updated provisions in assets forfeiture practice. We need legislation on cryptocurrency that will take cognizance of the updates in the use of cryptocurrency in crime, in financial crime. Now, there's need to have a comprehensive policy framework on delivering asset recovery objectives, transparency and accountability, access to information, recording, auditing, increased capacity and resourcing assets for future practice. And it's also important to recruit experts and skills of these experts to be able to handle civil forfeiture or NCBF mechanisms in practice. Lastly, I just want to talk about all issues I didn't really discuss, which is issues of law enforcement in practicing in trust, in sharing information of citizens, which we've discussed. Many speakers have talked about that, whistleblowing. These are issues that need to be addressed in actually enforcing an effective and successful NCBF mechanism in African countries. Thank you very much.
Everyone, thanks very much. We'll come back to Chinedum. We'll ask him to spend 5 minutes tops, and I apologize, but we are the last panel and you are the last speaker. So, because then we still need to take questions. Please start.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for your patience too. It's been quite a long session.
You much better now.
Okay, that's good. That's very good. Okay, so can you please, can you see my slide?
Yes, we can see your slides.
All right. So we're going to be talking about the rule of law, the rule of law in prosecuting corruption-related offenses, particularly when dealing with politically exposed persons. Okay. We understand that when discussing this topic, most of us tend to, why is my slide slow? Okay. Oh, I think I might just have to use this. Okay, so when discussing this topic, most of us tend to focus more on other typologies, you know, of money laundering related offenses. But, you know, some of us have also acknowledged, you know, the corruption related angle of money laundering and the side effects of this. But first, let's discuss who a PEP is. Who is a PEP? A PEP is, you know, someone who is holding public office, prominent public office. That's who a PEP is generally. And so, if you're holding public office and you abuse public office, okay, by engaging in corruption, bribery, you know, stealing government funds, thereby depriving, you know, the citizens and people who should enjoy their rights, basically, then it can actually affect a lot of other things. It can affect development, it can affect security, it can affect our lifestyle, it can affect, you know, our general well-being. The FATF has tried to define what PEP is, but I wouldn't generally think that a PEP is someone who is high-end, you know, holding a high-end political office. Anyone who's holding public office is also a politically exposed person. So I don't want to delve into that line of argument now because of time. Now, what role does the rule of law play when discussing issues, you know, of prosecuting PEPs successfully? First of all, let me show you this. The rule of law is central to the criminal justice system of any nation. Okay. Now, in Nigeria, so I'm going to focus on this discussion on Nigeria. In Nigeria, the criminal justice system, okay, is centered around the office of the Attorney General. The Attorney General in itself, or whoever the person is a politically exposed person. Okay, and all over the world, you can't have a functional criminal justice system, all right, without the rule of law. Okay, and so money laundering itself is falls under, you know, the criminal justice system. All right, so the AML regime falls under the criminal justice system. All right, the prosecutors fall under the administration of the criminal justice system. The AML regulatory agencies in Nigeria, like the EFCC, the ICPC, the NFIUs, you know, the CBN, Department of Money Laundering, the CBN, all fall under the criminal justice system, okay? But the funny part of this is that this criminal justice system, okay, is regulated by somebody. Not regulated by somebody, it's regulated by the Constitution, okay, which actually, and of course, other extant laws, the Criminal Procedure Act, Criminal Procedure Code, the ACGA, Administration of Criminal Justice Act, all right, but most importantly, the Office of the Attorney General, okay, most importantly, the Office of the Attorney General, and that is where the problem lies. Why does the problem lie around this area? It's because the problem of developing nations facing the corruption-related typology in Nigeria is not the absence of a strong AML-CFT regulatory framework, but the absence of a criminal justice system centered on the rule of law. Now, what do I mean by an absence of the criminal justice system centered on the rule of law? There's a tendency that when your entire criminal justice system, okay, is centered around an office or the administration of an office, okay, there might be a tendency of abusing executive powers or prosecutorial powers, okay, even as it relates to money laundering related offenses and the typology of corruption. Now, many legal scholars have made positive attempts in expanding the rule of law. Notable Aristotle, Evidice, Tom Baham, Lon Fuller. Most of this discussion, I would shed more light on Lon Fuller. Okay, integrates the 8 principles of Fuller's moralities of law, okay, and apply it to the AML regime in Nigeria and how it has affected the successful prosecution of politically exposed persons or non-successful prosecution, as the case may be. So Fuller believes that the rule of law must be internalized and accepted by members of the society. So in other words, you must have set, okay, you must have set rules. The rules must also be generally applicable. All right. Now, in the Nigerian AML regime, okay, particularly when it comes to prosecuting of money laundering related offenses, it appears that prosecution of other typology of money laundering offenses like cybercrime, for example, appears to be successful. Okay, drugs and narcotics appears to be successful. All right, but the prosecution of politically exposed persons, which and this typology is actually has a more far-reaching effect in terms of the negative far-reaching effect on the society. Okay, isn't as successful or is nothing to write home about? And why? Because it appears we have different set rules. Okay, that aren't generally applicable. And so these are some of the issues, which we hope to discuss. But because of time, I might not be able to go into full details. All right. Now, when applying discretionary techniques, for example, we're talking about generality of laws. Okay, discretionary techniques. Notice of discontinuance, for example, applying plea bargaining laws, for example. Okay, with regards to money laundering related offenses and corruption related offenses, it appears the EFCC and the ICPC and other AML regulatory bodies, okay, are in a hurry to negotiate, okay, and apply these discretionary techniques, okay, with politically exposed persons. All right, and at the end of the day, we have little or no success, all right, in actually carrying out an effective AML regime, all right, with regards to the prosecution of politically exposed persons. And so you ask yourself, why are we engaging in so many plea bargains, all right, or why are we actually having overcharging? Now, when you look at the charge sheet, why would you be charging? Which takes me to the next slide. Why would you overcharging or charging somebody who has actually been in public office, a politically exposed person who has abused his office, okay, with 100 and something count charge? All right. Let's not forget that money laundering itself, okay, is a criminal offense, right? And if we go by the mere definition of money laundering, all right, it's a process of crime, right? And so if it's a process of crime, it means that money laundering is a baby offense. In other words, there must be a parent offense for you to successfully prosecute for money laundering. Now, if you have to prosecute a politically exposed person successfully, it might be difficult, all right, for you to prosecute successfully on the money laundering charge, but it might be easier for you to prosecute on the parent offense. So what do I mean by that? If I'm in government, let's say I'm a governor or I'm a minister or I'm a government chief executive or something, okay, and I abuse my office, all right? The fact that I have abused my office, what have I done? I've committed breach of public trust. Yes, it's as simple as it is. And the Criminal Procedure Act makes provisions for this. And so, do I necessarily need to overcharge by putting all forms of money laundering counts, okay, in the charge sheet and making it very cumbersome and unrealistic for me to successfully prosecute? These are some of the issues, okay, which falls under the ethical consideration of prosecutors in the AML regime. And it's actually a rule of law issue. I would explain how it's all linked to the rule of law. Now, if you have a more transparency approach, if prosecutors and AML regulatory agencies are more transparent, okay, your charge sheets will be open to the public, okay, people will be able to make contributions, okay. If the independence of the prosecutors are sacrosanct, okay, then it will be easier and more transparent, okay, for the prosecutors to actually carry out their job. Now, the Office of the Attorney General, like Section 4, okay, puts everything at the doorstep of the AG. Now, subsection 3 of section 174 of the 1999 Constitution makes an attempt to create a leeway for the rule of law to come in. So I'm using the word intentionally, makes an attempt in the sense that it says, look, the AG must act in the interest of the public, all right, when applying discretionary powers. Discretionary powers like normally prosecuted. Okay, sorry.
I apologize for interrupting, but can I ask you to conclude your final points in 1 minute, just so that we can move to the question section? I do apologize. 1 minute, please. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So, some of the problems that we have, like I said earlier, lack of transparency of the AML regulatory agencies, which is a rule of law issue, transparency of the independence of prosecutors, which is also failure of the integration of rule of law in the AML regime, abuse of prosecutorial discretion by AML regulatory agencies, overcharging, for example, which we talked about, not having the opportunity to apply flexibility of charges or intentionally not doing so. A strict application of deontological ethics, so ethical consideration of gatekeepers here, lawyers, are people who actually should do their jobs in this regard, and also looking at it from a virtue ethics point of view as against a deontological ethics point of view. The challenge of the Constitution, Section 174, which concentrates all the powers of the AG, you know, and gives the AG exclusive rights to regulate the prosecutorial powers. And of course, FATF and GABA not asking the right questions, in the sense that because of the transplantation of laws, and then it looks as if we have an effective AML regime, which we do, all right, but with regards to the typology, which is prevalent in Nigeria, we are not as effective as we should be. So we have a lot of action going on, a lot of prosecution of politically exposed persons going on. But the real question should be, how many people have you successfully convicted? How many politically exposed persons have you successfully convicted? So these are the issues, you know, which center around the application of rule of law, you know, and if we look at Fuller's 8 principles, which I attempt to mention earlier, for clarity of laws, so the application of generality of laws, and the congruence of how these laws are formed and how they are applied, it's quite interesting, and I hope these issues can be subsequently addressed within the Nigerian AML region.
Dr. Opala, I must ask you to now conclude your presentation.
Yes.
Thank you.
So, my recommendation basically is that we should have a transparent application of prosecutorial discretion in the prosecution of an application of rule of law in applying these prosecutorial techniques by prosecuting politically exposed persons. Thank you.
Thank you very much for these very insightful presentations. I am so sorry that we have run over time and not had the chance to take all of the questions. I think we can share maybe just 1 or 2 questions. I wonder if Nisha can share her screen. Nisha, are you able to share your screen with the questions for us, or? Okay, if Nisha is unable to share her screen, could I please invite Dr. Okay, yes, fantastic, great. So we can only take maybe one question because we are really running behind time. But I think what we might do is when we send out our general email, we may then ask our presenters to just answer those questions, and we can attach that in an email for you. So I'll just take one of the questions, one that has 2 likes. Should the regulation of anti-money laundering be solely the responsibility of government organizations? Perhaps I'll ask Dr. Azinge if you are available. I think your presentation touched on some of these issues. Perhaps you can share some insights in 1 minute. Dr. Azinge? Is Dr. Azinge here? Okay, perhaps I can ask another person then, just going through the list very quickly. Dr. Constance, are you available to answer one question? Are you still here with us? Dr. Constance, are you still here with us? Okay, I don't believe that she is still. Okay, I can see her, but perhaps she can't hear me very well.
Oops, sorry, can you hear me?
Okay, great. Are you happy to answer this? There's a question specifically for you. So
yes.
Yes, we can. There's a question for you specifically. So if you can answer that question in 1 minute. Thanks, Dr. Jinkono, for an explicit view of Phil's Africans. I could immediately repeat your views which apply to developing countries. I wanted to share one thing in addition to that, please.
Okay.
Dr. Constance, can you
I think
hear
that
us?
one was even more of a comment than a question. Sorry. Oh, sorry. Okay. Please, how will culture impact the development? Okay, I've seen the question now.
It was a comment, and I just wondered whether you wanted to share anything on top of it before I wrap up. That I asked.
Yes. Yes, I would. I would say that culture, we need to.
So, is there any just share a comment?
Yes, and I'm saying that with regards to culture, we need to change our attitude to wealth. How we attain this wealth would be important and would point us in the right direction, so that it's not just a matter of making money, however, so long as you're rich. But have you made it in the right way? Is it clean money? Or are you outrightly involved in some illegal activity, and that is how you have gained your money, yet we still hold you up as a morally upright member of society? I think I'm having a problem. Can you hear me? Because now I'm the one who can't hear anything.
And please invite Lavina and Dr.
Dr. Gikonyo, we could